action. Welcome back to episode 2 of the Tennpod. This one is already a little bit late, but that is for a specific reason. Allie and I played a tournament. Now,
Mixed doubles.
We played mixed doubles together. And overall, unlike every other sporting event we've ever played, we didn't finish hating each other.
I thought usually tennis is fine.
No, even tennis can be a little bit testy sometimes.
Not testy in a good way.
But I asked her specifically, what do you need from me as a teammate? And she gave me a few things. She needs constant encouragement, even if we make a bad shot, which I don't understand. And she needs me to just keep my positivity high, despite what's happening on the scoreboard. So I worked on those two things, gave her lots of encouragement, and she did most of the actual tennis work. So it was a great partnership.
Yeah, Simon overcame the Prince Rainbow strings in his Dunlop that the live stream voted for me to put in there. I will admit I forgot that he had a tournament when I opened up string choice to the live stream and somewhat sabotaged him for the final.
It was an insane thing. We ended up losing in the final 12-10 in the third set tiebreaker.
Against my high school coach.
It was pretty heartbreaking, to be honest. It could have gone one way or the other. The tiebreak itself got rain delayed several times, and getting back out and trying to play after you've had half an hour of no tennis, trying to finish before the rain comes again, and then it did come again and you had another break. It was pretty tough. By the end of it, I think we were all pretty happy that we just finished the match, but still it was pretty cool to make a final.
What would you say you think you did the best job of in the tournament?
My serving was really, really strong, and I'd say overall my volleys were good. I still make a lot of stupid errors on volleys just by not being in the right position, and I don't really have any formal tennis training, so I still just kind of try and whack the ball over. Most of the time it works, but some of the time it didn't. Allie made some real heroics. She was all over the court, playing like a demon. Her and Pierce were battling it out. But I think I added a little bit of zhuzh, and making it to the final, we had to beat a really good partnership in the semifinal before that, and we won in a third set tiebreaker there. So overall, I'm pretty happy, but yeah, those strings were genuinely so hard to play with. It was insane. They were so soft. They had no feedback, no feel, and they were super powerful, which is a tough combination to go for. I think, you might correct me on this, but what I think of as a string that I like, especially in tournament play, is something a little bit less powerful. That's why I like Tour Sniper so much, because when I'm missing, generally I can actually add power to start figuring it out. Whereas this string, it felt like I was launching it even when I wasn't fully swinging, so I had no idea how to really correct it.
And it's tough because he's using the SX300 Tour, which is already a pretty powerful, pretty high launch angle frame. So when you combine that, and pretty muted, so when you combine that with a super soft, pretty rubbery string, it's just a combination for pure kabung.
It was a real kabungi factor. But in fairness, I don't think it's a bad string. I just wasn't used to such a shift in what I'm used to using, but it did work really well for my serves. I was serving at 60% effort, just trying to keep things in play, and I was still getting tons of power and able to pick my spots really well. I only got broken twice in the entire tournament.
That's pretty good.
It was pretty good. Unfortunately, both times were right at the end of a set. Not so good, but I don't know. I think I'm happy with how I played. Hopefully, Allie will agree to play maybe one more tournament together this year. We'll see how that goes. I know you guys are still planning on doing a tournament.
We're supposed to play one. I don't know. She's going to be away for a whole month this summer during tournament season, so our options are a little bit limited. We haven't discussed it since much her availability changed on the tournament we were initially going to play.
Well, she's discussed it with me as if it's happening. But to give you a little inside baseball, every year Beckett says he's going to play every single tournament that he possibly can. And then every single time, as the tournament registration's about to run out, he comes up with some sort of excuse to not play.
I have a lot of great excuses. I don't need to list them off here, but they're good.
So I would be impressed if you could play one tournament this year. I think that would be something
Thankfully,
special.
I don't live to impress you.
Fair enough. But anyways, made the final, got a little glass, got a little bottle
Some
of wine
vinos.
action. That was pretty good. Shout out to the Capilano mixed doubles organizers.
Always seems like a great event.
It was fun. It was super fun. Chill, lots of good food, good vibes. They gave us drinks. What more can
We're
you say?
accepting appearance fees to tournaments.
Absolutely. So,
Moving on.
one thing that's new in our developed lives as we've tried to find things outside of tennis.
And acquired mild amounts of spending money.
We do have some spending money.
Mhm.
TennCom has been
Because I sold my BMW, so I'm
pretty
rolling
generous.
in it now.
We're both car guys, and I've always been obsessed with go-karting, but before I would always get super car sick, even just like driving
Yeah, you still do.
relatively well. But I've been getting better, and I found a super fun go-karting track. It's called TBC Indoor Racing, and these carts are fast.
They go up to 70 kilometers an hour.
75.
75. The back straight, I think you get pretty close to the top speed as well. And I don't know if it's just the stability of the cart, you lose it a little bit at that speed, or if the track's actually bumpy, but you'll be like two-wheeling down the back straight in sections.
And you jump like this.
And
through
you
the
just
thing.
got to keep your foot in it and pray that you'll be able to find grip on the next corner, and it's so fun.
Well, we're both car guys, so this has been a bit of a competition between us both. But I just want to say, for the record, that I'm way faster than you.
Let the record show Simon's been twice as much as me.
4 times instead of 2.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think we need to figure out how to make this a TennCom challenge at some point.
Yeah, I would say I'm about a half second behind you.
A half second is a lot on this track. It's a 23
You
second
personally improve like a half second every race.
That's true. And you might as well. You probably won't, but you might.
I will. The key thing here is at some point, weight is going to become a factor in the race.
And I do weigh, 50 pounds more than you? 60 on a bad day?
50, lately 50.
Yeah, lately.
Because I've
50.
gone up and you've come down.
My question for you is, will Trey and Kyle accept us forcing them to go to the go-kart track? And who do you think would be faster?
We haven't been in the car with Kyle as the driver.
No,
When Kyle is in the car, I've seen him sleep,
that's true.
which is not a great sign.
Not true.
I could see them both throwing up. But I have to assume Kyle will be faster.
Who's lighter?
I assume Trey.
I think Kyle might be, because he's taller, but he is literally the thinnest man I've ever seen in my life.
Kyle's thin too. Or Trey is thin too.
They're both ripped. It's annoying.
But Kyle's bigger, isn't he?
I think the question really is who's meaner, and I think that's Trey.
You think Trey
I think
is
Trey
meaner?
is going to be wanting
Especially
to be Kyle.
when Kyle is there.
Yeah. Trey has a competitive edge.
All right, enough gossiping about two brothers. Also, my hips have been improving for all of those of you who have been wondering. The next video
Do
that
people know
comes
that
out-
your hips have been
Didn't we
hurting?
talk about it last time?
I
Or
don't
was
know.
that in the original one? Anyway, so I had a hip thing. Just my hips would lock up after 30 minutes of play just from sliding. But I've been doing some basic exercising. Things are improving significantly. And I suspect I will be unbeatable this summer, which I will not be proving in tournament play.
So, one of the things I wanted to talk about we just released your string tier list.
Yeah.
It's an hour-long video that way too many people watched, in my
I
opinion.
don't know why so many people want to watch an hour-long video on polyester strings. I ranked about 80, but if you include variations in gauge and colors, it was closer to 120 different strings that we talked about.
We're very fortunate that we have such a passionate viewer base. I mean, like,
Yeah.
it's insane that you can make something so... It's a niche within a niche that is the sport of tennis. And to have so many people care that much is frankly surprising, but it's really cool. The main thing I want to talk about, and I think the most controversial pick on your list, is Mach 10.
Mm-hmm.
You ranked it S tier, and there is a very divided community about Mach 10.
Yeah, so I think that all comes down to general divisions within the tennis community on what makes a good polyester string and what makes a bad one. And it all comes down to what you become used to as a player. Now, my observations as someone who worked in the tennis industry prior to running TennCom as well is that strings have changed a lot in the last 5 years, way more than rackets have changed, and there have been some developments in rackets. But when it comes to polyester strings, we're seeing so much more power than we saw before. We're seeing better tension maintenance, better notch resistance, so significantly improved snapback, which I believe really started with some of these more niche brands and is now trickling into mainstream brands like Solinco, who are now offering these pretty soft, high power, relatively high durability polyester strings that are a significant playing experience departure from these old school strings. And even I would count like Solinco Hyper G as being an older school string. You got to put in a lot of force to find that snapback. Not that durable when it comes to notch resistance because it's just not a slick string. Much less powerful than Mach 10. Now we have a lot more elasticity in these polyester strings, and people are expecting much more like traditional control, and by traditional control we just mean lack of power from their polys, whereas these softer, newer developed strings have so much more power that if you suddenly go to it and you don't know what to expect and you don't let your game adjust to that, you're going to have a negative experience.
So with all that being said, do you still think that Mach 10 is S tier string?
Oh, absolutely. Viewers are not, as much as I appreciate your comments, it's not like I make these claims without heavily considering them and heavily testing them. Like we've tested Mach 10 in probably 10 different rackets now. Mm-hmm. Has it played bad in one racket? I would say no.
No.
Wasn't great in the Gravity MP, but I think that's more of the racket than the string. It plays predictable in every racket. We've had great durability in every racket. We've probably gone through a reel's worth of that string and haven't had a bad experience. And simply can't be said for so many other strings that we've used.
No, I would say, weirdly for me, I actually preferred it when it was in prototype. I thought it was a little bit more feedbacky.
I mean,
whereas now it's a very comfortable string. When it came out
I
as
don't
the
think they
finished
changed it that much from when we tried it. I think a big part of that is just we were testing it in your whiteout, which also would have been a development mule for that string, right? Because, you know, Solinco is going to be testing their string in their rackets predominantly.
Would you use it in a tournament?
I could use it in a tournament. Would it be my first choice in a full bed? Probably not.
What would be if you had to play a tournament tomorrow, which we know he won't, but if you had to play a tournament tomorrow for your life, what is your string choice? Because I know in the past it's been Grapple Snake. You've loved Tour Sniper. You've loved M8. Are those still your go-tos? What are you picking up?
I could easily play a tournament with any of those, but tomorrow, life's on the line. I got to win the match. I'm picking Otoro Tour.
Why is that?
I think I get better spin with the Otoro range than I get with any of the Grapple Snake strings, and I still get this confidence feel of like great confidence, like I can go for any shot that I want to. And with Otoro Tour specifically, because it's stiffer, I just like what you were saying, you want your string to be a little bit lower powered, so in the match you can find the shot you need by adding power rather than taking it away. And so stiffer response, still huge spin. Feel wise, I'm dialed in. It's probably the string Toro and Sink in the Cross is the string that I've used the most with the Rafas, but as soon as I put the Tour version in, it was just so confidence inspiring. And I've played it until it's broken in my Rafas, which I also can't say for most strings.
And if you were stringing my racket and I was playing to save your life and you weren't allowed to use this bullshit Harlequin string, what would you put in my racket?
Is it just one match? So the string only has to last
one match. And it's against Trey.
Honestly, I think you've been playing pretty well with Razor Soft, so I could put Razor Soft in. And I feel like I like Tour Sniper with Sink in the Crosses, but whenever I put Sink in the Crosses for you, you don't seem to be super enthused about it.
I wouldn't say Sink in general is something that I get on with super well. I actually prefer the recycled string that they make a little bit more.
I'd probably just put Razor Soft then, because but every time I put that in your string, you're like really happy with it.
Razor Soft is a fantastic string. It just runs out of juice pretty quick.
So if it's just for one match, I would just throw that in, and then I know that you're not going to have any issues in your 300 tour.
Now, you didn't mention any Dunlop or Y-Tech strings, and we did get more than 2 comments about that. So yeah. I wanted to ask you, have you tried them? Why didn't you put them in? Did you just forget? And where would you put some of those strings? Especially
Let's start with
Black
Dunlop.
Widow.
We'll start with Dunlop. I have tried Black Widow, but it was close to 10 years ago, and I felt like my experience with it then, it was a little bit hard to remember. Mainly what I remember about Black Widow is it dropped tension really, really bad after one hit, and then had that bagged out feel that I've just been getting from like every single softer black polyester string that was developed like 10 plus years ago, which is most of them, because most people were trying to make a more comfortable version of RPM Blast at that time. So for me, it's in a very similar category to something like Vocal Cyclone, playability wise. So I'd put it right beside Vocal Cyclone. When it comes to Y-Tex, I honestly completely forgot. The owner of Y-Tex, Ivor is a great guy. Absolutely fantastic to deal with. Made sure that Simon and I had all the strings we wanted to test, but unfortunately, from a performance perspective, neither of us enjoyed them whatsoever. A little bit too soft. Same situation as you had with your Prince strings, where they're both soft and muted, so it's hard to find a connected, dialed-in feel with them. A lot of their strings, they go a little bit too far for the edge for me. Like Quadro Twist is a really popular one. I really don't like twisted strings. I think the response you get is inconsistent. Same thing with Square X Sharp, though I think that's probably their most compelling string from a value proposition. If you look at the market, it's quite unique with how sharp it is. We tried like a red hexagonal string and a blue round string, and they both locked up really fast just because they're too soft. They dent really fast. It's like they're have like a rubbery kind of coating on them or something, and there wasn't a single shot that I played with any of the Y-Tech strings where I felt confident or happy with their performance in any way. So mostly I just forgot to talk about them, but none of them would be any higher than C.
Didn't one of the Y-Tech strings inspire one of our greatest skits and bits of all time?
Square X Sharp.
Square X Sharp?
Square X Sharp.
That's an S-tier string for me, just based on the pure genius of our bit.
Yeah. Unique string, and that's the one that I said that had the highest value proposition.
Mm-hmm. I'd remember, because I've tried 2 or 3 of them.
Yeah.
None of them are bad.
I think they're bad. I think they're genuinely, a subpar product if you look at the market, which I don't like to say because I think the company itself, like, I really would want to give a good review to them because I think the guy is great. You know, we've had our fair share of times dealing with people who are frustrating to deal with, and so it sucks when the product isn't great but the people are.
Fair enough. Now, the last string that I want to talk about is the Kirschbaum ProLine 2. Now, we have had a passionate post about this from Matthias Tennis.
Not just one post. I think he replied to several others.
I should say he made one post. It's very long, and then he slandered us in several other threads. In quite a funny way, honestly. He's clearly
very passionate.
Very passionate. He has accused us of being clickbait, which I think is fair.
Yeah.
And
it's called YouTube.
He said to put Kirschbaum ProLine 2 in this nonsensical tier list, further still in D tier, demonstrates how little you know about quality strings. And he went on to say that your review is below average and forgettable. So I think he put your review of a tier list in D tier.
He did. And
what do you think? Is Kirschbaum ProLine 2 really a D tier string?
Yeah, I think it is. Didn't last. You tried it as well.
I tried it.
Did it work for you?
Not really.
Because?
It just didn't have anything special, and it didn't last very long.
No, it didn't last. It really does not last.
But at the same time, what's the value proposition? How much does this Kirschbaum cost in comparison to others?
Yeah, it's like a $10 or sub $10 string, which if you like performance, here's my thing. If you're going to argue that you're a great budget string, then I'm looking at Tennis Only P6, which is really, really hard to beat at $8 a set. And I'm looking at the True Pro lineup, which starts at $10, but you can easily get 20% off with our discount code, and they constantly go on sale. I think
shout out to the discount codes.
Yeah, shout out to the affiliate codes. And I think True Pro performs way better. Okay, you're looking for a soft, comfortable round string that's slick, lasts long, similar to ProLine 2. I think Ghostwire does that. You've used Ghostwire a ton, and it's lasted and held up for you as well as any premium string at that low price.
I think one of the arguments, because a couple of pros use ProLine, don't they?
No
pros?
No, they use max power.
Okay. Well, like, one of the things that we do when we're reviewing is we're not reviewing for the guy who has 6 rackets and gets them restrung between games because he's a professional player. We're reviewing for the regular recreational hitter who's out here to have fun. And part of what factors into our reviews is, like, how long these strings last, because you don't want to be constantly having your racket getting restrung in the shop. It costs a ton of money.
Yeah, it's inconvenient.
It's a bunch of inconvenience. So, yeah, for me, the ProLine 2 definitely, I don't have nearly enough knowledge or care to make a tier list about strings, but if I had to put it somewhere, it would be on the bottom shelf as well. But shout out to Matthias Tennis. He's out there grinding. I went and I checked out his channel. It's him walking through the woods a whole bunch.
He could be making a tier list walking through the woods.
Sort of rambling.
We'd all click.
He seems kind of funny. I liked his channel. He's a funny guy. So shout out to Matthias. Thank you for your passion. Finally, Cyclone in D tier. What's going on with that one?
Like, I've gone through an entire reel of Vocal Cyclone. It's a totally playable string, but it's another one that bags out really fast. And you know, when I talk to the people at Tennis Warehouse about it, like Brittany, for example, because so many of the Tennis Warehouse playtesters still use Cyclone as a benchmark string, she doesn't even like it fresh. She likes it worn in and notched. But at the end of the day, it becomes what you're used to, and we try so many strings all the time that I feel like we're pretty tuned into what lasts us, what doesn't, and what lasts in terms of lasting control and lasting spin are the two main things for us. You experience things a little bit different from me, but if a string notches, you hate it.
But yeah, it's the worst.
Yeah, and I hate that too, and because we use spin to control our ball. And so as soon as you have any notching, you're losing a huge amount of spin.
No, fair enough. Okay, let's move on. We have one news story we want to get to. This is yours.
Who is sponsoring this week's news?
Oh, we haven't discussed the news. We haven't discussed a sponsor.
We got to make up a fake sponsor.
Do you have a sponsor in mind? Do you want to give anybody else a freebie?
Oh, yeah, I do.
Okay.
This podcast is sponsored by Caleb Honore. I think that's how you pronounce it. It's written in like French, but he's from Florida. I think he's fresh out of college.
Okay.
He's been making a couple of videos mostly about Yonex rackets, and there's a huge amount of potential with his ability to storytell, his style, his personality. He's got like, I don't know, 500 subs or something.
Mm-hmm.
But super energetic, really cool guy to chat with. I DM'd him a little bit, and he's working hard, he's grinding, and I hope that he sees the rewards that I think he has the potential to see.
I also want to give out, and this can be tennis news, a shout out to Felix. I know he's a bigger channel than us, and he doesn't need our help, but he has been grinding it out on the UTR circuit in Japan. And he's finally putting together like strings of wins, and that's been really fun to watch.
That's big.
I love his videos. I mostly just skip to the match play because it feels like it's edited for someone significantly younger than me.
Yeah.
And that's not a slam at him. It's just not meant for me. But I love watching him play. He's a great player. And he's been putting together some really solid wins down in Japan. So shout out to Felix.
Okay, on to the news story that I've prepared. Stefano Tsitsipas is black. He's not black. But he is back with his Blade 98, 18
Felix
by 20.
did give him the N-word pass.
Did he?
LGL,
well deserved. I don't know that FAA had that pass, to be honest. But he's back with his 1820 blade strung with 4G. Seems like he's just gone back to his old spec. And I think he was playing completely fine. Just kind of got outfoxed by a player who is clutch, a player who is hot, and a player who really gets under his opponent's skin in Arthur Fils. And we know that when Tsitsipas faces that kind of perturbing player, that he doesn't always deal with it that well, and he seems to always try to hit them.
It's true.
That was enjoyable. In terms of the hitting, I think Steph went for a completely fine shot. Fils was completely fine with that shot selection, but had to make drama out of it to help himself fight for the match, which I think is completely fine and exciting, and I liked it.
It's crazy because like Tsitsipas losing at this point in a 1000, you have to say like feels disappointing, but it's just like the state of tennis. Like you're running into Fee in the round of 32. Losing to him's not a bad loss.
No, he's got huge W's over Zverev. He's a clutch player. He's exciting. He knows how to get the crowd on his side. He's young. He's 20 still.
Yeah, but he's mature with his game sense and his ability to seize the moment.
And physically also.
And physically very mature.
Yeah.
I think he's super excited. I just think it speaks to how insanely tough, again, like we spoke to last week, the tour is
not easy.
It's in a state of flux where anybody can go on a run at any given week. And I think it's super exciting. So with that being said, we'll move on to Rome and talk about the return of Sinner.
Yes.
What he's doing. I see you've put TBD there.
So in this segment, we're going to talk about how the clay swing is kind of shaping up and feeding into the French Open. So we're going to give some letter grades on the performance for the top 10 players. Of course, Sinner is back in Rome playing his first tournament after a ban, which some are saying is unfair because he shouldn't have been banned, which some are saying is unfair because he should have been banned for like 2 years. Whatever your stance is, he is back. He's looking almost like he never left, except a little bit more jacked.
Suspicious.
Hard to say. Hard to give him a letter grade. I guess you would have to just say NA for now.
I watched his first round. I didn't think he actually played that good by Sinner standards, and I still think that unless something happens physically, he's going to roll this tournament.
Yeah. On to the number 2 ranked player as of today when I looked. We have Zverev, who made round of 16 in Madrid, losing to Cerundolo. He's still alive in Rome as of filming on today, May 11th. He won the Munich 500, which was big for him after he's had some shaky confidence since the Australian Open. And then in Monte Carlo, he lost to Berrettini in basically his first round, the round of 32. What grade would you give Sasha?
Honestly, when I look at what Sasha's doing, I actually have been a Zverev fan since he was a young guy, and I thought he had a lot of potential. I just don't see any evolution in his game that's going to suggest that he's going to win these big tournaments, and I think his style of game is going to make it tough for him even in the early rounds of these tournaments where he can lose to anyone who's willing to take charge of the tennis match. He's hanging out at the back of the court like he always does. He hits it huge, but when he's standing 30 feet behind the baseline, it doesn't matter how hard you're hitting it. He's still giving these guys ample time to get set up and keep the ball in play. And when he's playing someone like Cerundolo, when he's playing like someone with Berrettini, who get that one shorter ball, they say thank you very much, and they step up and they close the point out. I don't see that from Zverev. He's not closing points. I'm still seeing him hit shots where he has to go up into the court, and then he's running back again to get ready to just restart the rally. It's frustrating. I can see him sometimes thinking about making moves. He does come to the net a little bit more, but it's nowhere near enough. I think for me, especially given how much potential I think he has, I'm giving him like a D for the last couple tournaments. I know he won in Munich, but I think he should be winning a lot more tournaments.
So for me, if I'm adjusting my grade to the specific player, which I think you should for this case, I think he's finding some confidence again. He's looking a lot more assertive in Rome. Well, maybe not assertive, but he's winning effectively. Mm-hmm. Finding that W in Munich, I think, was big. I want to give him a B-.
The thing is, for me, is he's the number 2 player in the world. I think that's deserved because it is deserved. It's mathematics. He makes these deep runs all the time. He's one of the best players on tour, but I don't think he's ever going to be the top guy with the style.
He's got a lot of points to defend this week. He's champion last year. So,
for me, it's just frustrating to watch him lose some of these matches where you just feel like he's not playing to win.
And he's up against Fils, who he might lose to again.
And Fils is a guy who grabs the moment. He is a guy who likes to impose himself on court. He doesn't shy away from the big moment, where I feel like Zverev, a lot of the time, he's up in a match and then it comes time to close and you can see him get tight. He has that scar tissue as a term that people
it's like
throw
he
around.
Plays for the other guy to lose rather than for him to win.
He needs like 10 match points to close a big match, it feels like. And for me, like, I want him to do well. I want him to win. I know he's had troubles in the past. I know a lot of people don't like him, but you got to give a guy a chance to reinvent himself. He hasn't been in the news for anything bad. Recently, it seems like he's turned into a pretty zen kind of guy. Overall, I don't know. I'd like to see him do well, but I don't think he's playing to his potential at all.
All right. So you giving him D.
I'm putting him in Zverev D.
I'm sticking with my B- for him. I think for him, A is just winning the 1,000. 1,000.
Yeah.
Alcaraz, number 3rd ranked player in the world, on spiritually certainly number 2.
Mm-hmm.
Madrid didn't play, took time off. Barcelona made the final, lost to Rune. Abductor injury probably contributed to that loss. And then he won Monte Carlo. For me, this is an A.
Yeah, I mean, Alcaraz, you have such a high standard, much like Zverev, but even higher. So you go, oh, well, he's not winning every tournament. you can't give him a good grade. But I think he's still playing very strong tennis. I think he's in the middle of trying to find a few things that work for him. He's still a guy who's in heavy development, and I see a guy who still is very eager to learn. He's changing things. He's trying to find a way to get himself into more consistent, sort of boring tennis.
And he's spoken a lot about how Sinner's absence, he felt like put a lot of pressure on him because the world number one was up for grabs again, and that he wasn't playing his brand of tennis because he had the absence of someone to beat. It was just like he should be the favorite. He should automatically win. And I think coming onto the clay, he shook that off a little bit. And the only thing that we're seeing hinder him is a little bit of physical issues, which we know maybe he's a little bit prone to, but what are you going to do? I'm fine with that. I'm not counting it as a mark against him at this point. So
no, I'd give him an A all day. He's still the most exciting player to watch. Highlight central. There's nothing that you can really say that you want to see more from him. It's just a tough tour, and it's a tough year slog to be in the finals and win tournaments week in and week out. It's not really realistic at this stage, and I think that for what he's doing more than enough. Fritz has lost in Rome to Giron. He's already out in the round of 64, and he lost in the round of 16 against Casper Ruud.
Can't shame the loss against Casper Ruud on clay, I don't think. I think Fritz is dealing with some physical issues, so he's probably not playing up to his potential. I don't think he really has this whole year.
He's also not a clay guy.
I don't expect a huge amount from him on clay. Not because I don't think he can do it. Like, I think he can find wins on clay, but from his performances earlier this year, and given how much tougher the tour has become, I don't think he necessarily stands out as much as he maybe has in the past. I think this is not his best showing whatsoever, but I don't expect that much more from him, so C+.
Both losses, he lost to Ruud, who went on to win. If you lose to the guy who wins the tournament, that's automatically a forgiven in my book. And then he lost to Giron, who's an unbelievably solid guy. Like, you hate to see a matchup against Giron in the first round. He's an unbelievable mover, great defender.
He's not someone Fritz should be losing to unless he's got a good reason.
I feel like on clay, though, it's a little bit more even.
Giron's a flat hitter, too. It's not like his ball is kicking up, but maybe that's partially of what's bothering him. It's not like he can find a bunch of power to keep Fritz back. Yeah. I think a lot of it is just Fritz is maybe not playing his best right now.
No, I wouldn't even give him a C+ for Fritz. I'd give him a C, but then you have to couch it with he's not a clay guy, and like you said, he's going through a few physical issues. I think that he's going to be a force to be reckoned with once the hard court season gets back
Even
again.
On grass, he's a great grass courter.
He is a good grass courter. We'll see how he does on grass. Yeah. I don't have as much confidence in him getting there yet. I think he'll still need some time to figure it out. He needs to get some momentum behind him. So the grass could provide that opportunity to start building momentum.
I think it will.
And I think he's going to come in hot for the hard
grass. He's won tournaments on grass before. He's gone deep in Wimbledon.
He lost in the semis to Nadal, was that the quarters?
I think that was the quarters, but he's had big wins at Wimbledon, on center court. So, hopefully he turns it around. Anyway, on to Draper. Lost in the finals of Madrid to Ruud. Tough battle, round of 16, lost to Alejandro Davidovich Fokina. I wasn't 100% sure if we would see Draper continue his hard court form onto the clay, and I think he has, and he showed that he did in Madrid. Hard to know exactly what to expect from him at this point, as he's really starting to break through, but we know he's a fighter. I don't know if I want to I don't think I want to give him an A at this point, because I think he's got more in the tank than just a 1,000 final. Of course, Rome not over yet. So for me, it's a B.
I think that's pretty harsh, to be honest. I think that he's put together, not just on clay, but on the hard court season just before it, a string of pretty exceptional results.
But they didn't seem like more than he could provide. They just felt right, I thought.
I agree, but that's because he's just coming into his own.
I think he should be walking away with titles in every swing. Legitimately.
I agree. He's got a big game. Watching him play the first set against Ruud at Madrid, I thought that he might just bulldoze over Ruud. Credit to Ruud and credit to myself for predicting that his spin and just constant kind of professional presence on court ended up sort of breaking Draper down. But I still think he played a great match, even in a losing effort against Ruud. I think that he's looking strong already.
He did. That was one of the best finals we've had this year.
Absolutely. He's looking strong already in Rome. I think that for me, I would give him an A all day.
All right. Djokovic, the elephant in the room, basically loses his first round of 64 to Arnaldi. And then in Monte Carlo, basically his first round of 32 to Tabilo. He's not playing Rome, but he's apparently accepted a wild card into, I think, Stuttgart or something. Whatever. German.
Before the French.
250 before the French.
This is a tough one.
This is the toughest one because he's played horrible all year, other than beating Alcaraz in the Australian Open final, and it's hard to say, has he been only winning because of his amazing experience, and now his body just isn't enough to let him use that experience, and so he's losing to these kind of up-and-coming and Arnaldi and relatively journeymanish in Tabilo at this point, but still on both, I would say, on upswings of their careers, whereas Djokovic is on a firm downward spiral. There's no way Djokovic is happy.
No, definitely not. But at the same time, he suffered a pretty bad injury. It wasn't really that long ago.
It was a big tear.
And he's old. Like, I think he's still feeling the effects. When you look at him move right now, it doesn't look like he's a declined version of himself. It looks nothing like Djokovic. Like, I think he's still suffering the after effects, and I think he's been playing these tournaments in the hopes that he could just get the feel back. I don't think he is making his injury worse by playing, and he just wanted to get that feel. So
he's not finding it.
He's not finding it.
So I don't think it's an F.
It's not an F. I don't think it's anything higher than a C minus, though.
No, it might be a D.
It might be a D.
I think Djokovic might rate himself a D.
I think so too, but then at the same time,
he might rate it an F.
Like I always say for Djokovic, for Nadal, for Federer, these guys know how to peak for the tournaments they care about. And I think that he's willing to sacrifice all of these results. I don't even think he's grading himself because he doesn't care. The big one for me and the big one for him, as we know, is going to be the French Open.
Yeah.
And so he's going to come in there, and I think he's giving himself the best chance he has to get himself as close to 100% physically as possible. So I don't begrudge these results. He's losing first rounds. You shake that off.
We're just happy he's playing at this point.
I think that, the French Open is really going to tell you a story of where he's at. So before that, it's almost hard to give him a grade because at the end of the day, at this stage of his career, he loses a 1,000 first round.
Are we giving him an absent?
You dust that off.
We just let him take the absent?
I think he's got a freeze on his ranking for this one.
Ruud. First 1,000 title over Draper in Madrid. Quarterfinal in Barcelona to the eventual champion Rune. And then a surprising L to Popper in round of 16. Monte Carlo, for me, this is potentially an A+.
It has to be an A+. He won his first 1,000.
Yeah, he won his
this
first 1,000.
This is a massive breakthrough for Ruud.
I hope that it's part of the beginning for him in terms of where we see him ultimately peak. Love to see a guy who works as hard as Rune find the dub.
This is a guy who's a consummate professional. And when I say that, what I mean is you look at a lot of other players, even at the top, Alcaraz is actually a good example of that, where they will have demonstrably bad days, where he just doesn't have his A game, doesn't have his B game, doesn't have his C game, and he just kind of isn't sure of what to do and where to go, and you can see him struggle. Ruud is not really one of those guys.
He has bad days.
The variance in his play is pretty
bad
small.
days where he just takes horrible L's to normal people on hard court in the first round.
No, but I don't think he's doing that because his game is off. I think he's got the game he's got, and the reason why he goes deep in these tournaments is because he's always implementing that game, and the guys that he's playing in this very competitive field can have good days, and they can blow him off the court. I think that he's one of those guys where his ceiling isn't necessarily, and it might be changing, but it isn't necessarily historically as high as his ranking deserves, in my opinion. And so he'll run into a guy who's in the top 50, who's playing hot, and he can lose in that first round, and that's fine. But over the course of aggregate, over his career, he's making deep runs in tons of tournaments. He's got tons of finals and majors because he always shows up. I think he's one of the only guys who really implements a game plan that works for him. He is hitting high, loopy topspin shots. He's trying to pick on guys' backhands all the time. He's trying to put together the pieces in a rally to make himself take control. I think that this is evidence of all his hard work, and I think he is leveling up on the fly. I think this is an A++, almost an S- for me.
Oh, we're adding S?
We're adding S.
All right.
But I don't think anyone's deserved an S so far.
No one's deserved an S.
I think this was a huge breakthrough for him. I'm super happy. I think that...
Okay, I'll be swayed to A+.
I think that of all the guys on tour, he is the one that I'm most interested to see is this actually the point where he can figure out a way to start really giving these top guys consistent problems. And I'm hoping he can. And another guy who I have questions about how high his ceiling is Demon. Now, he is lost in Madrid, round of 16 to Moose. He made the quarterfinals and lost against Alki in Barcelona. And he made the semifinals and lost once again to Moose in Monte Carlo.
I don't mind these losses for Demon. He's only losing to two of the best clay quarters in the world this season. I'm sure he would prefer to be walking away with, a 500 title or something. But a lot of these guys are not even playing that many tournaments. I think a big part of that is because the 2-week Masters really take up a lot of time and energy, just being in that one place for so long and having all the matches to play. I don't mind these results for Demon. I don't think it's an A. I think a title is required for him to get an A, but I think it's a B+ showing.
He's another guy. He's like Ruud for me, where I've always seen that professionalism. He is a hard worker on court in a match, and he's one of those guys who doesn't lose to the riffraff. He is always getting through. The problem is he just can't seem to break through against the upper echelon guys.
We don't need to have 10-minute Simon speeches introducing the game style of every player. Just give Demon a grade.
Okay, I think a B+ for me.
Okay, thank you. Musetti, Madrid semifinals, lost to Draper. Not bad. Monte Carlo final, loses to Alcaraz. For Musetti, a guy who hasn't really been in those positions necessarily in his career, though I think we all see the potential. I think this is an A showing for him.
He's got style. He's got flair. I think what I'd like to see out of him more is implementing that aggressive game. I think that a lot of the time when he's in a match, I can see him get into this passivity mode.
He can.
And I'd really like to see him, because he has that offensive game when he's in that mental space.
That's when he plays his best.
So for me, I think this is like a B tier for me. I think he has more in him. I think he's
got
talented.
more in him. I think this is the best we've seen him fight and compete in his career over a couple tournaments. So I think that's a nice page that we're seeing turn. And I'm definitely, he's going to be on my tweener for the French.
Absolutely.
Last up, 10 in the world, Holger Rune. Lost in Rome. He's one of the few players on this list who is already out in Rome. Lost to Moutet in a battle. Retired in Madrid to Caboli. Won Barcelona, but then retired in Monte Carlo to Borges. Classic Holger Rune kind of swing. Insane highs, insane lows. Winning over Alcaraz in a final is big. But then not having your body sorted and retiring in 2 tournaments and then losing to Moutet is bad.
Losing to Moutet is pretty tough. Losing in the way
Moutet played really well.
He did, but he still hit a lot of bullshit. And he still hit a lot of shots that anyone else in that top 10 probably would have munched for breakfast.
Or would deal with in a disciplined way.
Yes.
Whereas Holger is not being as disciplined with the shot selection as he was in Indian Wells, which I thought that, okay, this is the turning point. We're looking at disciplined Holger Rune, and we haven't seen that in the same way.
It's just tough because he's been all over the place for a long time now.
And he's hard to grade.
Like you talk about Rude and Demon being always there. He's the guy that I have no faith
He's the most up and down. He's not good value.
And then at the same time, you don't pick him, and he still could win the entire tournament because he could beat every single one of those guys if he puts his game together.
Yeah, so what, are you giving him a B for the W against Alcaraz?
No, because you still have to couch that with Alcaraz could barely move.
That's true. But it's not easy to beat an injured player. Making the final is good.
Beating Alcaraz, despite his injury, is still fantastic. But at the same time, on aggregate with the rest of the results, I have to go B-.
Okay. I want to give him a B+ because he found a title. Finding a title is really important, I think.
True. Gets you big points that'll have to defend next year.
Yeah. But it also gives you the confidence a little bit longer running.
That's true.
You would think until you lose to Moutet.
That's true.
So those are our letter grades.
And that's the podcast.
Oh, do we have questions? We got to answer questions.
Oh, we got to answer questions.
We got to answer fan questions. We will answer your questions. Just reply to the pinned comment that we're going to pin with your questions. Top up voted options will probably be answered, and also your most controversial questions. We also love controversy here on the Tennpod.
Now, I will say I am a little bit disappointed in our comments. No one insulted you.
Nobody needs to insult me.
And no one said any mean things about us. No one said any really controversial things. Cool Awesome Dude asks, are you planning to play any tournaments this summer? And what makes a good rec level tournament? That's a 2-part question.
We discussed whether or not I will play a tournament. Most likely not. Simon already has, and will likely play at least one more.
I love tournaments. Competition for me is like the main thing I enjoy doing. So I'm going to play as many tournaments as I possibly can. Like I said, I just finished a tournament with Ali. There's a whole bunch of tournaments coming up. I was going to register for my first Masters event, but it ended up falling on my sister's wedding.
You're old.
So now that I'm 30 plus, I can start grinding it out with the true grit players. And I'm looking forward to that. So there is one more, I believe, in September this year in Vancouver. So I'll play that as well. I think that's at Hollyburn.
What makes a good tournament is place for people to watch and kind of develop community and clear organization.
What about food? I think food's a big factor for me.
Yeah, it's nice to have food provided, but being near food options is also fine.
Like the Surrey Open in Vancouver.
Yeah.
It's run by the Indian squad. They are the nicest people. They have good organization of the tournament, first of all, but they have an absolutely insane spread of Indian food.
But that's like above and beyond. I don't think you can expect that from your average tournament, but Surrey goes above and beyond.
It's the best tournament you could possibly play. The only downside is it's super far away. But I want to play that every single year, and I want to live in one of their houses because the cooking is top notch. ATR Ranger asks, why do you think most rec players are leaning towards poly strings when those strings have a tendency to hurt them? Do you think there should be a higher emphasis on natural gut or syn gut or multis in most rec levels?
I used to think that, but I think lately, and we talked about this earlier, polyester strings are softer. They hold their snapback longer, so the barrier to using them is lower because the swing speed requirement is less due to less friction in the string bed. Now, I personally am recommending more polys to lower level, more recreational players, because I think it's really important to learn this spin. I think a lot of recreational players on average, like there's been some rating inflation, like people are a lot better now at 3.5 than they used to be. They're learning this modern technique. And to learn the modern forehand, you need polyester strings. It's what makes the modern forehand. So, I think polyester strings have a place, and if you blame a string for your injury, that's on you for not being self-aware to your limitations in terms of technique and muscles and strength and stuff.
So I was totally wrong. SDAMD-X2J has snuck in an insult to Beckett 5 days ago. He asks, why are you bald?
This is not an insult, but I have cancer. No, I don't have cancer, and I'm not an alien. I have alopecia, so my hair just doesn't grow, and it grows. Like, I have a little bit of peach fuzz right now because I'm getting a lot of vitamin D.
You get pretty fuzzy.
And I have to shave once a week, or else I get scraggles.
He gets whiskers. He's like the rat trainer from Ninja Turtles sometimes.
Yeah, I'm like Splinter.
I think that looks pretty cool, but Sierra doesn't tolerate it.
Yeah, she hates it. So
she wants him hairless.
That is why I'm bald.
You've got half an eyebrow right now.
This eyebrow's
That's a
been
full eyebrow.
decent for a
on?
while, but this one I think was coming back and then went away.
You have more eyebrow than I do right now.
I think you have more on this side.
But you make up for it on that side. Toynfinity095 asks, when you've tested pro player racket specs, have you generally preferred low swing weight, high static weight, or high swing weight, low static weight?
I wouldn't necessarily like the...
Or even low swing weight, low static weight like Alcaraz.
For me, the best player playing pro setup, it's hard to answer because I really appreciate all of the setups for what they are, and I think you can really feel how that player makes the most out of their setup when you test it. Like Djokovic is an absolute pleasure to hit with that setup. Nadal is really fun as well. But the one that changed my game the most and caused me to kind of rethink how I set up my racket was the center setup. So high swing weight, low static weight, and that's really shaped the way that I set up my Rafas now. But I wouldn't say I look at a player's spec and go, ooh, that's something I really want to try or really don't want to try. It's more like I want to see how this player is using that racket.
What are the pros and cons of each of those? And like, why does one suit one style and another suit another style?
The lower static weight helps you find racket head speed, especially on the run. And then the higher static weight helps you find more control, and especially with depth control, like you see that with Djokovic using some of the highest weight on tour. He's one of the most controlled players when it comes to picking his spot on the court, often picks safe spots, so it doesn't always seem like he has as much control as he does, but I think he probably might have the most control in terms of targeting of any player of all time. And I think that's one, when you look at, you know, what kind of positions he'll find himself in on the court, it's like he can put it on a dime. So yeah, it's kind of just explosivity and spin versus depth control and consistency.
Fair enough. And last question, I can answer this. Teddy's father, which is a great username, by the way, asks, when Federer guest episode? Federer reached out to us after he heard we were starting this podcast, and he made us an offer, but unfortunately the money just wasn't right, so I had to turn him down.
He wanted us to go to Switzerland. We just don't have time for that. Even on the private jet, it's a bit inconvenient.
It's not working out this time, but I told him we'll get back to him if our schedules line up.
Like if he wants to come here, that's one thing, but he wouldn't.
I told him when he was here for the Laver Cup, we would have made it happen, but unfortunately just not meant to be this time.
Yeah, we could.
Maybe next week.
I had a hit with Simon while he was here. We just couldn't move it.
No, absolutely not. So, thank you all so much for watching.
Leave your questions for next week in the pinned comment.
This was the best podcast we've ever done.
At least 125% better than last week.
Goodbye.